Hey everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads to get to those books that have made the biggest impression on them, a long-lasting effect on them, has just stood out, and really my guests have really lived the lessons of those books. It's one of the books that if you ask them that question, which book stands out, that's the one they go to. So I want to know which one it is that's contributed the most to their work, their life, their business, whatever endeavor they may be these days. And my guest today is Mario Lanzarotti. And Mario is the founder of Aligned Founders, a global movement helping male entrepreneurs scale their businesses without losing themselves in the process. After exiting his first startup in New York, Mario learned what many men quietly face: success without peace, pressure without purpose. His coaching helps founders shift their identity from survival-driven operator to aligned leader rooted in trust, fatherhood, and faith. Over 2,000 men across 15-plus countries have used his frameworks to reclaim their time, reignite their purpose, and scale without burnout. His TEDx talk on self-doubt has reached nearly 3 million people, and his work has been featured in Forbes, Affluence Magazine, and on stages with NYU and Skanska Walsh. Clients say it's not just what he teaches, it's the way he helps men remember who they truly are. And to correct his name, Mario Lanzarotti. Mario, thank you so much for being here.
John, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to dive into this conversation, especially with someone who's so well-versed in all these wisdom sources that we call books. So yeah, excited about this.
I am always learning, so anytime I can have somebody on here with an interesting background, doing interesting work, timely work too, just because with everything that's been going on in the world, men have been impacted. All these various groups, they're impacted to different extents, but I like that the conversation nowadays does focus a lot on men's needs, boys' needs, their development, their confidence, their mental health. So you and I don't know each other that well. We connected by chance. We're sitting down for this conversation, but just hearing those particular kinds of themes where you're focused on men, I'm interested to always learn about someone's background and how they were driven to that point. So I'm very interested to have this conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. So Mario, for you, can you provide a little more of your day-to-day today? What does that look like for you? What are the services that you offer? What does it look like, the work that you do with your clients?
Yeah, I work exclusively with founders. Most of my clients are male founders. I also have some female founders and love doing the work with them equally. And the focus that I have with my clients is just straightforward to scale their business. So I'm working mostly with multi-6 and seven-figure clients to scale their business, their operations, make their marketing better, make their hiring and training processes better. That's the surface. That's the stuff that everyone does in coaching. But underneath the surface is what either makes that a success or a failure. And that's the inner workings of the psychology, the emotional intelligence, the way that you're actually operating. Because so many of my clients come to me and they say, Mario, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. And they keep looking for more information. They keep looking for another book. They keep listening to another podcast. They go to another Alex Hormozi YouTube video, and these are jam-packed with value. Don't get me wrong, these are great things. But if you're in a scaling process, you need to have strategic execution. And most of these founders nowadays, they are drowning in information. They are filled with self-doubt. They're overwhelmed because they're not really clear about why they're not doing what they need to do and then resolve it. And so I work with them on these inner bottlenecks that are causing their external bottlenecks. And so we set a target. We focus on the area of the business that needs to be shifted, whether it's hiring, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales. And then we look at, okay, what's getting in the way? What's keeping you stuck? And then we focus on resolving that very quickly. And when that happens, it's like, at first you come to realize, oh yeah, I have to do more sales. I have to do more lead generation. I have to hire new people. And it's hard and you have to push yourself and you can't sustain that. But then when we go through the inner shift, now it's like, this is who I am. I don't have to think about this. This is like brushing my teeth. It's just normal to me. There's no effort required that eventually burns you out in the short term. So this is in the short term for me. I work with clients on a daily basis, one-on-one. I run several groups. I do talks, in-person seminars. I'm running one in London in 2 weeks from now, a very intimate setting. And you asked about men, and for me, I have a very special passion for men in the world, and I'm sure we can get into that story. But in a nutshell, that's what my day-to-day looks like.
Yeah. And even I think in just reading your bio, reading some of your work, looking through some of your work, I love that it goes, yes, there is the business aspect, but there is, again, like that self-work, that inner understanding. So I appreciate the work you're doing and just sharing what you're doing with your clients on a day-to-day basis. Now, for you, to understand how you got here, Mario, can you tell me a little bit about your path? Typically, I like to start where somebody began going into their career, into the workforce, maybe college, around that age. I like to kind of get a sense for the path that they took and what is it that led to their work today, their insights, the way that they're viewing their field, the way that they're doing their work. So what did that path look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my life has always been colored by leadership and by a desire to be in leadership positions and develop myself as a man and as a leader. And so out of high school, I went on to being trained as a pilot in Germany. I was in the pilot training program for Lufthansa and had invested about 2.5 years into this path, maybe 3 years, and it was extremely hard to get in. And when I got in, I realized that I had just pursued this path because I wanted to prove my worth to the outside world. I looked for what's the most prestigious career that I can find. Where can I make a lot of money and where can I do it fast? It's like pilot training is 2 years and off you go and you're close to 6-figure salary already. And your path is set. And I thought that's who I am and that's what I'm supposed to do. And then I went into that and it worked, but then I became extremely miserable. And I knew inside of me that the choice I made was coming from a misaligned place. It's not who I was, it's who I thought I had to be accepted by the world. And so what followed was 6 to 12 months of just absolute misery and agony. I developed a slip disc with chronic back pain. I couldn't sit, stand, or walk without constant pain. So I took heavy pain meds. I didn't talk about it because I thought if people knew that, I would be deemed unfit to fly and I would lose my career that I hated. But it was the only thing that I had, so I could not give up. And that led to this just mental spiraling on a downward track, and eventually got so bad that for about two weeks I contemplated how to commit suicide, like the best ways to do that. And was important for me as a man, and for a lot of men listening, you may relate to this, as when we have problems, especially inner problems, we don't talk about it. We just try to find a solution, usually by just becoming more disciplined and working harder and being more successful. And that just wasn't working. So I went on to YouTube and I typed in motivation because I told myself I'm too lazy, I'm too weak. So I looked, okay, how can I be even harder? Even though I was already operating at like elite performance level, where to become a pilot is extremely demanding. And so I found Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins, I was just binging all of his content and learning about the mind, identities, why we do what we do, and our human needs. And it was just like an explosion inside of me where I understood why I was in this position. And I also felt a sense of I can get myself out of this. My life isn't over just because I choose to quit. So at that point, I started to separate who I am and what I do. And that was a very hard and very long process, but eventually I got out of it. And I was so amazed because I pretty much went onto the path of then pursuing entrepreneurship eventually. But the way that I made a comeback so quickly was incredible, because I just heard about people left and right that were struggling with depression and chronic back pain and how that was like their whole life. And I made such a quick comeback. And then I reflected, I was like, how was this possible? And it was possible because of the psychological shifts that I went through, that I learned from Tony Robbins. And that's when I started applying that to myself on a day-to-day basis. And I started just talking about it and sharing it with others. And so from then, I knew, I was like, I told myself when I watched Tony Robbins and I decided to quit the pilot career, one day that's going to be you. You're going to speak to millions of people. You're going to inspire people. You're going to help them have breakthroughs in their lives. And you're going to coach people, to essentially transform every aspect of their lives. And then 7 years later, I started doing it.
So where does that come from for you, Mario? You know what I mean? Because you go through life, you have these difficulties, right? Not the right word, but obstacles. And then you come across Tony Robbins, you binge his content, and there's like a switch that goes off. That switch was always there, right? You just took like the right amount of pressure, the right trigger to get you motivated to go. Where do you think that comes from in you, though? Because I believe like some of that has to be innate. It just has to be awoken in you. So where did that come from in you? Did you have somebody in your life that was motivational? Where did you see that thread maybe in your past? How do you explain that? Just that instant kind of, because again, yes, there is somebody showing you the way, but it seems like you already had that inside of you. It was just unlocking it.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And I would agree, and I find it's a combination of a couple factors. One, I grew up in a very loving household with very, very caring, very nurturing parents that at the same time were incredible hard workers. My dad emigrated from Sicily when he was 17, just with a backpack, because he was the adventure type. And he's like, I don't want to stay here in Sicily. The women want to get married at 15, even if you just touch their hand. It was like ultra classical times, traditional times. And so he's like, let me go on an adventure. And then he ended up in Germany, getting to know my mother at a very, very young age as well. And they had their first child, my sister, and then they got married. And so they were like natural born hustlers. My mother had 3 jobs. My dad had 3 jobs. He taught himself how to speak German. He got himself a degree. Like they just worked. And I saw that. And they didn't come from like wealthy backgrounds. They were coming from, decent backgrounds, but they built a life for my sister and me that they never had. And so to me, that was incredibly inspiring. And it was also, there was also a lot of trauma, growing up, a lot of pain growing up, a lot of suffering growing up from seeing my parents struggle and feeling a sense of like, I got to take care of them. And I want to make sure that I don't see my parents suffer and struggle and fight. And so I developed this identity of the savior, of the fixer. And so early on, I remember when I was a little child, I always said, one day I'll take care of the whole family. I'll be the one. I'll make everyone proud, because my family came from like, they weren't academics. They never went to study. They didn't pursue a higher education. They just worked their ass off. And so I said, I'm going to be the one in the family that's going to make it big, and I'm going to take care of everyone there. And so as long as I can remember, I always found myself in leadership positions, whether it was with my friends, I was the leader of the group, whether it was my soccer club, I tried to always be the leader, always spearhead. And, that comes with with positive and negative sides. There was a lot of loneliness that I felt throughout my whole life. And that came from a sense of, I always had this hunger and this grip to become better and to grow fast. I wanted to know more and find ways on how I could succeed and outcompete other people. And that meant often I was the only one. I grew up in like northern Germany in a small village that is very much not internationally orientated. And so I often felt like I don't have anyone that really understands me and really can relate to that intense hunger and ambition. Hence why when Tony Robbins came in, which is a very American kind of style, it felt like fucking finally someone speaks to my soul. Someone is saying, you can achieve anything you want. And in Germany, whenever I stepped up with that kind of mentality, it was ridiculed, or it was like spoken down, looked down upon. It's like, don't ask for too much. Don't be too arrogant. Step in line, do the safe thing. And that's okay for a lot of people, right? Just not for me.
Yeah. There's so much power in just what you shared, because I think so many people do feel lost because they are in the wrong circles. And like you said, it's nothing against what anybody else wants to do. It's nothing against or any judgment against the path that they want to take. But there's something about it sounds like everything on here on this podcast, it sounds like common sense, but I love when somebody brings up a great example. And I've heard this example so many times where you just had somebody, and I see it in your eyes. You have somebody that has this energy, this hunger for something, but they're just in the wrong environment. And then they either leave, they go to school, by chance they get an opportunity to go somewhere, and then they get exposure to certain people or a certain person who has that, who can mirror that back and say, no, you're not out of your fucking mind. There's a reason for this. And here I am, like, here's the introduction, here are the people, here's your crew, whatever it may be. So I love that. And I love that that's a great reminder for people that if they feel that unease, if they feel that kind of energy, don't wilt under the environment that you're in. That's when you kind of have to step out and explore to see not somebody that has your exact energy or wants to do the exact thing, but somebody where you feel like you can unleash yourself, whatever that environment might be, but at least fucking experiment and get out there and try. Mm-hmm. So I love that story. And that's why I asked, okay, how does this happen where he watches a video and all of a sudden it's unlocked? Tony Robbins is great. Motivational speakers are great, but there's something about the way that you put it where it's like, okay, it wasn't 100% Tony Robbins. It was most of what Mario was. This just seemed to unlock it.
Yeah, totally. And this is the whole point. It's like, I see this as both a blessing and a curse in the world of entrepreneurship, because nowadays a lot of, especially young men, watch all these TikTok and Instagram videos, and they're like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's killing it. He's got the lifestyle. He's got the money, the relationships, the travel. Oh yeah, I want to do that. And they set these arbitrary goals, and then they just end up chasing that, and they lose themselves in the process. And this is also where I said in the beginning, when you described it in my bio, it's like, it's scaling without losing yourself. Because for some people, having a 10K per month business is absolutely perfect. For other people, it's 100K per month business. That's absolutely perfect. But there's, you often see this online. There's these people just paint that this is the way that everyone should live. Whether if you're an entrepreneur, you should just go hustle your heart out 24/7. And for some people, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
But if it's not, you're going to live a very miserable life, and you're going to be very, you're not going to have success in what you're trying, because it's not meant for you to be successful in that path. And that's what I learned the hard way many, many times, because I pushed myself into things that I thought were the right deal for me. And then, I reflected back and I realized, I pretended to be someone that I'm not. And that's why I struggled so much with moving forward.
Aside from the pilot career, the pilot training, there were other businesses, other areas that you were working in, trying to make it succeed, and for whatever reason, it just didn't reconcile to who you truly were? Is that what you're?
Yeah. So after I saw that, after I had that, let's call it Tony Robbins awakening, I knew it in my heart. It's not a thought. It's not a desire. It's just like, yep, you were born for this. And at that point, I started to make a plan. So I had to find a way for me to get to the US, because I knew trying this in Germany, forget about it. It's just not the culture for it. There's not the networks for it. So then I said, okay, I don't want to be the kind of guy that just goes from, I've never done anything like it. I've just quit my pilot career and now I'm just going to start this. I want to build more experience. I want to build more credibility. And so I ended up studying business management, and then from in Berlin. And then in Berlin, I flew over to New York for an internship at a small startup. And I asked the founder of the startup, I said, hey, if you give me the chance to prove myself to you, and you like what you see, will you make me your business partner, your co-founder? Because I want to come in as a co-founder, not as an employee. I want the rapid path, and I'm willing to just give it my all. And he said, I like your attitude. Let's see if your words match your actions. And then for a year, I just worked my ass off without seeing a dime, without a contract, just a handshake. And then he took me on board. He made me his co-founder. And after I went back to Germany, I graduated my bachelor's, and 2 days later, I packed my bag and I flew over on a tourist visa, and I had no clue how to make it happen. Just none. I was like, this is meant to be. I'm going to make it happen, whatever it takes. And I had to sleep on friends' couches, live of very, very little means to make it in New York. I mean, you yourself know how incredibly expensive New York is.
Yeah.
But I was fine, because I was like, I'm here to work, to grow, to learn, and to build essentially a case study that I could then use to get into rooms with people like yourself, with founders, with business people, that I would earn my trust. I would earn their trust. And so then for the next 5 years, we built that business. We scaled it, and it was all bootstrapped, and we turned it into a success story, but it was incredibly hard. And man, I was suffering and struggling. I was making $2,500 a month in New York City. Our janitor made more money than I did.
Yeah.
And so, that event, and on the side, I continued. I would go to seminars, to coaching seminars. I would take public speaking classes. I joined Toastmasters, and I would take every opportunity I had to speak to students, to people, to coach, just to practice. I said, I don't want to be one of those bullshit people that just says, oh, I'm a coach now. Oh, I'm a speaker now. And there's no foundation. I said, I want to be one of the greatest. So I'm going to practice until this stuff, I can do this stuff in my sleep. And that's what I did. And it took quite a while, but here we are.
Oh, absolutely. No, I admire that. It's incredible to awaken that much. Yeah, it's just incredible. There's no other word for it, where you can watch his videos, his content, it wakes you up, and then you just have that drive, that hunger. How do you describe that? Only because how do you describe that to somebody who may not have that? What does that feel like? What's the description of that? You know what I mean? Because when it comes to entrepreneurship, let's just break it down to, you're an entrepreneur, you're not, and they're at varying different levels. But that hunger you must have, that drive you must have. Most entrepreneurs, a good amount, not all of them, but a good amount have that. There's no plan B. Like, this is what we need to do. They don't see anything else. So they put everything into that first position, hopefully as much due diligence as they can. Sure. But they don't see, it's like one of those that thought of, you can't say no to them, because they see, this is what they see, this is what they want. They're that fixated on them. Can you speak to that, Mario? Because I mean, you've lived it across the Atlantic. I mean, you left everything behind and you said, this is what I'm going to go do.
Yeah. That's a great question. No one has ever asked me that question. I really like the way you ask questions.
I like hearing that. I like
so many podcasts, and this is the first time I hear it. And as I'm thinking about it, what comes to mind is, think of it like that time when you were madly in love with a woman, and you knew she's the one. and you just can't imagine your life without this person.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful, because if you're not approaching this in a healthy way, this becomes an obsession. And I'm one of those people that will tell you, be careful with this whole narrative of you got to become obsessed. Like, you see this in entrepreneurial circles all the time. So many people that you got to become obsessed. You got to become obsessed. It's like, yeah, but think about what you're even saying there. An obsession is something you can't live without. And if you can't live without something, it gives you an incredible drive. It's this like, this is it. But there is a shadow to it. And the shadow to it is you become so identified with it that if this obsession of yours doesn't work out the way that you think it should, you can very much fall down into a pit. And that happened to me several times. And I would say that when I first started, it was more of an unhealthy relationship with it. It was more like a do or die kind of situation. And that created this incredible spurt. Right? This is great for starting things up. This is like the hustler energy. But you cannot live your life as a hustler. It's not sustainable. So it's like you can't live your life always in this honeymoon phase. It's also not sustainable. Like, I think the example with being, when you're in love with a woman, you'll just throw yourself at her. And it's likely you forget all the other aspects of your life because you come
it's like
so
tunnel
single-minded.
vision. That's all you see. Yeah.
Exactly. But then as the relationship matures and you grow, you have to mature. You can't just be, all I have is my wife or my woman and, fuck the rest and, I don't care. No, because your life is bigger than just one relationship. There's more to it. And the same I would say is for business. It's like that's why for me, the areas that I work on with my clients and with myself is there's the relationship that you have with yourself. There's the relationship that you have with others, with other people, and you cannot be an island for all of your life. In fact, I would say the healthier your relationships, the greater the likelihood of success in your business. And then the last relationship is, I would say, is the most important one. That's a relationship with God, source, creator, universe, right? For me, it's God, but some other people don't relate to that word. And that relationship should inform everything else. And when you don't make those a priority, you just end up being this lone wolf that may have a very dark wake up moment at some point in your life. And it may just be too late. You know the stories. The founder that's getting married the fourth time, that doesn't talk to his father anymore, has estranged relationships with his children, had a triple bypass, had a stroke, but I just got to keep going. Yeah. And that stuff is not, at least I believe, was never meant to be the entrepreneurial journey, because the entrepreneurial journey is about freedom. You're creating something that's away from the 9-to-5 set path. You're the one who chooses to create a life based on your own conscious choice. And that requires a lot of agency and a lot of deliberate reflection on who you are and how you're living your life.
So a few questions. You had spoken about your back problems right around when you were doing the pilot training. How have you been since then? How's your back? How's your health?
So that's that could be a whole podcast in itself. But what I can tell you is, so when this started, I was around 21, and it was debilitating pain. And ever since that, I'll never make fun again of old people. Never again. Because I transformed into a 90-year-old from 21. And so I went to see all kind of doctors and specialists, and I was misdiagnosed. And so they kept on trying to stretch me, trying to, say, oh, you're just like what did they say? To you just need to stretch. Your muscles just need to, be moved more, even though I was working out 6-7 times a week,
Yeah.
like a crazy guy. But they just kept on stretching. I was getting injections into my spine, like they were saying, yeah, you have scoliosis and all that stuff. And then the last one put me into an MRI and said, oh, you have a slipped disc and it's quite severe. And he said, if we don't fix this now, you will have pain and a sense of immobility for the rest of your life. And so he wanted to perform surgery on me. And this was one of Germany's top surgeons, as probably still is. And for me, that just did not make sense. I was like, I'm 21. You're not going to cut me open at 21. That's just not happening. And fast forward, I was able to heal that completely without any surgical intervention. And I did it in 2 ways. One, and that was the biggest one, was to understand the psychosomatic connection. Back pain is primarily connected to suppressed emotions, especially anger, especially guilt. And I was feeling so much of that, but I didn't know. I had no clue. I had no connection to my emotional spectrum. There's a great book by Dr. Sarno. He explains it in there. And I tell you, I've done so many different type of therapies, but the moment I went into releasing the emotions and feeling them, the shift in pain was instant. Literally instant. Like the moment I let go of that anger and that guilt, I could literally feel the pain just disappear.
Incredible.
And I was like, I didn't do anything. I cried. I yelled out the anger. I let it go. Speaking about the book that we're going to talk about, I released that. And then on top of that, I did functional training, strengthening my core, just becoming more intentional with my workouts. And that's it. And, I sometimes still have some back pain, but you know when it happens? Every time I go into the emotions. Every time I feel that intense sense of pressure, that anger, that guilt, and I forget to do the work. Every time I do that for a longer period of time, the back pain kicks in. I'm like,
it catches up with you.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
And so then I say, okay, thank you for reminding me. And then I have my tools, I have my practitioners, I go into it, and every time, like clockwork, I do it, and the back pain disappears.
That's incredible.
So, here we are.
That's amazing. And then, as you were talking before, there were a few things I wanted to ask you about. So it was following up on your back, the state of your back, the state of your health. And then the other thing, obviously in the bio, I had mentioned faith. You just mentioned God. Yeah. So what is your relationship with religion, God? Yeah. When did that start? Is it familial? Was it after your family? How did you come to religion and faith?
Yeah. So for me, I would say that I don't identify with any specific religion in the traditional context, though I would say that I'm probably closest to Christianity. For me, I started out, I would say, and I never categorized myself in any way. I started out as sort of like, I went through the traditional Catholic kind of quote unquote training, because this just, Sicilian family, it was just what you do.
Yeah.
But it was never practiced. We never had any conversations at home around it. We didn't pray. It was just like, okay, well, your sister did this, your uncles do this, just do it. Yeah. And for me, the people that I was surrounded by, I never resonated with them because they were talking about these principles of God and, righteousness, but then I saw them in the Christian sense, sinning and just do all kinds of bullshit and just not embody what they say. And so for me, it was like, why should I be like that? I don't want to do that. And then I just don't believe that there is anything anyways. And so I lived that way for a long time. And then I went onto the path of plant medicine, psychedelics, ayahuasca, San Pedro, psilocybin mushrooms. And during my first ayahuasca ceremony, I had a reconnection to God moment, and it was profound. It was truly profound because I had this visceral experience in my body where I went through all of this trauma that I was experiencing and releasing. And for those of your listeners that don't know what ayahuasca is, it's a brew. It's a tea from the Amazon that is mixed together. You drink it and you go through a journey. You with a few other people. There's a shaman that guides it. You sit, you close your eyes, and you have this. It's like this inner trip, and you move through memories and traumas, and you can revisit them from a different perspective. And it was extremely healing for me. And so in that ceremony, I felt the presence of God. And it was like, okay, I believe. I don't understand it, but I believe there is something there. And so over the years, I just went on to my own exploration with God, with spirit, with consciousness, with whatever you want to call it. And I'm not hell-bent on the name, but for me, it's a relationship with something that's divine. And over the years, I got closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to it. And the shift that I saw was incredible, because the more I connect to God, the less it's about me. The more I step into a sense of service, the more I step into a sense of providing for others and accessing an understanding that reminds me that I'm here to serve a greater mission. This is not about me. Like, I'm just a vehicle for that mission. And so now I've tapped into all kinds of religious understandings, from Buddhism to Hinduism to Christianity, to really gain a broad understanding and a perspective of these different traditions, and to find a place, a common place in that I can live with. And for me, that is unity. There's oneness. Jesus talked about it, pointed to it, and there's a sense of what I focus on is embodying the principles. Less so in reading a book and saying, yes, I'm a believer, and yes, I am this and I am that. That doesn't do anything. I'm like, what did Jesus say? He said, love yourself as you love your neighbor, love God. He was like, he just gave you a very, very simple manual. He's like, forgive people. He said, deny thyself, which essentially is an ego death. He's like, deny the self, let the self die, let it go. And so I've been following that. And I have Christian clients, I have Buddhist clients, I have clients with Islamic faith, and every single one of them says to me, Mario, you have helped me come closer to my own faith than my pastor, than my teacher has. And that's because I don't look at it from a dogmatic way, and I don't judge people that do, but I do my best to be a anchor in truth, in love, and to hold people inside of that and help them understand that if they believe that, and they must live it. If you want to be a Buddhist, you must live being a Buddhist. If you want to be a Christian, you must live being a Christian. Don't talk about it, live it. And people do it. And when they do it, all these miracles happen.
Yeah. No, I like that. Don't talk about it, do it. Don't preach about it, live it. Because I think we get so lost in that part of it. And I like the fact that you look at the broad sense of all these different faiths, seeing the commonalities, seeing those common threads that go throughout them. So I appreciate you sharing that. Mara, you had spoken about your childhood. You had spoken about your work. One can easily see how one leads to the other. My next question is always, how do you make sense that your childhood led to this? Or how do you reconcile who you are as a person today to who you were as a child? What is it that comes out from your childhood and the work you're doing today? The work and who you are today.
Yeah, great question. I'd say, and we mentioned this before, the leadership aspect is a big one, for sure. But interestingly enough, I connected to what you just asked me about my relationship with God. Ultimately, I believe that God is unconditional love, and that we as human beings, we don't really understand what that actually means, because we are conditional beings, and that's okay. We have a human experience, and the human experience comes with all these conditions that we automatically place on each other and on ourselves. But like, the common thread that I've seen throughout my childhood was this incredible sense of love that I was inside with my family, and also a lot of pain that I experienced, that I saw, that I witnessed. And I went through this phase of my life where I took a lot of that personally as an attack. I was like, that shouldn't have happened. My mother shouldn't have done that or said that. My father shouldn't have said that or done that. My parents shouldn't have divorced, like, poor me, I was 7 years old and, that wasn't right. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done, that, there's a lot of judgment, a lot of blame. And I realized that in the judgment and the blame, there was an absence of growth. It just didn't serve me. It didn't serve me to actually do something with it. And when I went into are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about his work.
So he facilitates these 7-day meditation retreats, and they're like combining quantum physics with heart math science and brainwave science and like crazy stuff. And so I went to it and I meditated with a group of 2,000 people, and the experience that I had was everything started to make sense to your questions. Like, I realized that all the pain that I went through has always been a call for me to practice unconditional love. And when I say practice unconditional love, what does that mean? It means strengthening my relationship with God. So every place of suffering is really where you have an opportunity to meet God. And the more you meet God, the more you're infused with a higher level of consciousness. And you're literally elevating in consciousness. And when you're elevating in consciousness, your capacity to live a richer life just becomes magnified. But how do you live a richer life? Well, you live a richer life by serving others primarily to have a richer life. And that just pushed me even more into the leadership component. And I talked about it earlier as well. It's like, I also experienced a lot of loneliness in my life, and I hated that. I was just like, I don't like that. Obviously, nobody likes to feel lonely. But even there, I connected the dots. And I was like, yeah, all that loneliness allowed me to serve in a greater capacity and to have a bigger opening to let more of God into myself and then to help others. And so that's, for me, is a conversation around purpose, because it's especially for men. Men are not, and this is where I challenge the big popular narrative, that men need to be softer and then men need to take it easier and relax more. What I firmly feel is that men are not looking for that. Men are looking for a reason to make sense of their hardship, because when they have that reason, they will gladly embrace that hardship. Right? They're like, this is why I do it. And I know why I get up at 5 or 4 or whatever. I know why I work 10 hours a day. I know why I, save all this money on myself and give it to my family. I'll do it gladly because I got a big fucking reason to strive for. And that's what happened with me when I started connecting all those dots. I was like, I just felt myself growing. And as I grew in my capacity, I was able to hold more of me, to hold more fear, to hold more doubt, to hold more shame, to hold more guilt. And when you can hold more of that, you can take bigger risks. Because if you want to build a 7-8 figure business, if you want to build a podcast like a Joe Rogan, you're gonna face a lot of adversity. A lot of people are gonna come shit on you. So if you don't have a big container to hold these things internally, you're not going to be able to play a bigger game externally. And that's why, for me, I then connected the dots. That's why I knew I'm here for a big mission, because I didn't have these experiences just for nothing. And yeah, I hope this answer makes sense.
Oh no, man, I love where you're going. Question was, were the traumas that you just outlined with your family and the loneliness, were those some of the ones that you walked through during your ayahuasca experience? Is that some of the
Yeah.
stuff that you went back?
Yeah, a lot of that, a lot of sadness. Yeah, I would say the theme was mostly loneliness and sadness.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it. We're here to discuss this book, but there's so much in what you just said that you got to come back so we can talk about everything else that you just went through. Because what I do want to ask you about, that you've spoken about, is men and what they believe their place is. Or, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm bringing you back for another conversation. We'll set it up. I promise, because I do want to get into that, because I really do think it's very important. But thank you for speaking to that, because I think you see so much of that today. I mean, it's incredible for me. The biggest thing about men's health is it's incredible for me that, and I've spoken to some guests on here, that our fathers didn't have that interconnectedness that's available to us. Where
Right.
you can go, for instance, on Facebook and find like a fathers group. You know, people at work form fathers groups. Like they have this support, because the same way I don't understand what certain groups may go through, whether it's women or whoever the group may be, no one knows who or what we're going through except another father or another man. And like you said, there's been that stoicism to men where they believe they couldn't share their feelings. They couldn't open up about what they were going through. So it's incredible to me that generations before us didn't have that outlet. They didn't have that way to express what they were feeling. So it's incredible that we can go through that. We can explain it to each other. We can share. I feel we're very lucky to grow up in this particular generation with this technology. I mean, just me connecting to you right now. Because where are you right now, Mario?
Germany.
You know what I mean? Like, when would that happen in past generations? So I'm grateful for what men have, what fathers have, what colleagues have, this interconnectedness. So thank you for being here. What do you consider your superpower, Mario? A few more questions and we'll jump into there is a book at the end of this conversation that we're going to cover. I just think you're putting out there so much, but for now, what's your superpower? What do you consider your superpower?
I would say my superpower is two things, is to see other people's potential, and is to see exactly where they are getting stuck inside of it. Meaning, how are they preventing themselves from really executing on that potential? Like those two things, I can tell it very quickly. I think the pattern recognition part comes from living in a Sicilian household where emotions are like hot, and they go between hot and cold and hot and cold. And so you have to learn early on how to read a person, like emotionally and mentally. You have to know, and some people can say, yeah, that's a trauma response. And sure, that doesn't matter, right? I used it as a gift, but I would say it's
exactly, but it's a gift that's become a tool that you've utilized.
Yeah.
I mean, every pitfall has its advantages if you go back and look at it. It's shit when you're going through it. The traumas, the obstacles, the troughs, whatever. But when it crests and you can reach back and utilize those tools, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for me, maybe another part of that is, I think I see the world in a way that most people don't. Like I have always seen the potential for us to live in a world where we truly live united, where we truly live and where we thrive at our best. I believe that every human being, every single one, has the innate capacity to thrive in life. They may not have the resources, the access, the tools, but we all have it in us. And I find that it's our destiny to realize that in whatever shape or form that is the way. And for me, also building aligned founders is part of that, is why I'm doing it, because I know I can't do this myself. But if we build a world where, imagine a world just 10% or 5% more people thrive, where when they wake up in the morning and they ask, how do you feel about your life? And they say, yeah, I feel I'm thriving. Do you know what that would do for the world?
Yeah.
That would radically improve every area.
Oh, yeah.
Every area.
Because there's such a ripple effect to somebody thriving. Even people they don't know in their day, but they're just crossing their paths. Even those little micro interactions, there's a ripple effect to that.
Yeah. You know, see, there's a book, which is written by Dr. David Hawkins. And I think it's in the book Power versus Force. But he talks about he measured levels of consciousness, right? From the lowest being shame to the highest being enlightenment. And he measured it in a way where he says, at certain levels, you have when you're at that level of consciousness, just your presence alone elevates other people to a strong degree. And you don't have to believe in the way that he came to that conclusion. Just observe normal life. Like, if you see someone walking around that is high energy, that is happy, that is passionate and excited, and you put them in a room with people that are maybe half that energy, and if that person can maintain their energy, the room will change. Yeah. It's a law of nature. Now, think of people like a Jesus Christ. What he inspired. He inspired billions. A Buddha, a Gandhi. There's so many figures in the world that have that. So that's why I'm saying, if we just have like 5 or 10% more people that say, I'm thriving, the world will become a radically better place. And for me, this is the most important thing to work on. It's not AI. It's not healthcare solutions. It's not political solutions. Those are all important. I don't want to downplay them. But those are often more symptoms. And we forget the very root. And if the root is you're not aligned with yourself, you're not aligned with something that is greater than yourself, that I consider God, and with people in your life, no policy or health fix or AI tool is going to change anything. Yeah. Because the consciousness that operates it all is still at a lower level.
Yeah. And I think the thriving, just obviously the state of thriving, it offsets fear. And I think fear, the way you spoke about the emotions, what it does to your body, the way that fear causes people to lash out at each other, we see it all over the world right now. So I think if people are thriving, it's less people that are living in some kind of fear, which I think leads to so many problems today. Mario, one last question before we jump into the book. What does leadership mean to you? How would you describe leadership? What does great leadership look like?
I think it was John C. Maxwell that coined this term, that leadership is being in service to others. And I would agree. It's very simple to me. Leadership is serving. And leadership is not just service to others, it's being in service, but what are you being in service to? You can be in service to the lower self, the small self, the ego self. There's many different languages around that. Or you can be in service to your higher self, your greatest version, your true self. And that's where it starts, right? It starts within yourself. You have to you are always being in service to one part of you. And when you're serving from the greatest version of yourself, then you will naturally be more inclined to be of service to other people. And that way of service, for me, creates a ripple effect, which then creates more leaders that follow suit.
All right, Mario, let's jump into the book. If you could, introduce the book you want to go over and how you found the book, or just provide an overview of the book.
Yeah. The book is called Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by Dr. David A. Hawkins. And I don't remember how I got to the book. I usually browse through a lot of those consciousness, self-help kind of books, but the book spoke to me because at first I was turned off by the title, letting go. Like, let go. When you first come to it, especially as a man, it's like, what do you mean let go? I'm not letting go. I want to be in control. Like, if you let go, you're surrendering, right? Pathway to surrender. Why would I surrender? I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. I don't surrender.
I'm going to
I
see
don't
this
give
through.
up, right?
Yeah.
I'm fighting.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, that didn't resonate with me, but then I got into it, obviously, and I discovered how incredibly powerful this is. It is so simple, but it's so powerful. And so the way that essentially the author describes the technique in the book and the essence of the book, it's all about letting go. And when you're letting go of something, like you're letting go of a belief, you're letting go of a fear, and it's like, take the analogy of a hot a hot weather balloon, right? Where you're
Yep.
that has weights. And so when you let go of one of the weights, the balloon goes up.
Yeah.
Right? And when you let go of one of your weights, you go up as well. So what is a weight that you're letting go of? Well, it could be that you're building your business, you're focused on scaling, and you're thinking about adding a new employee. You're thinking about making an investment in maybe in a lead generation campaign, and you're just scared. You just go, oh my God, what if this doesn't work out? The last time I did this, I lost money, and boy, you have this fear of failure.
Yeah.
So now the book says, let go of the fear. And so people are like, what do you mean let go of the fear? How do I let go of it? See, letting go is actually very simple. Like and I always use this analogy. I actually have a cup here. So let's say you have a cup, right? And this cup, you pour in hot water. How fast would I let go of the cup?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how hot the water is.
Right. Like, it's very hot water,
yeah.
right?
Your pain
Very
threshold. Hot. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm letting go immediately because my hand is burning.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us, we hold on to the cup because the cup is cold. And so when the cup is cold, you can hold on to the cup forever. You can build a whole life around holding on to the cup. And that's what most of us do. So what's the point here? The temperature difference is our perception. See, most of us were not aware of how much holding on to fears is actually costing us. See, the fear of failure, it's okay to feel that. But if you're holding on to it, if you're allowing that fear to decide, am I going to invest in a new hire or am I not going to invest in a hire, that's costing you. That's costing you money because you're not taking action. Right? Should I speak to my employee and have a tough conversation about the fact that I'm not happy with their performance? What if that's causing problems? I'm afraid that's going to cause any issues. So again, you have a fear here, and the fear is now controlling your behavior. It's controlling your actions. So the point is for you to let it go. Now, when you let go, what happens? What I've experienced is whenever I let go, which is another way of saying is I surrender, I surrender to something greater than me. Because when I let go, I also say I trust. I trust something. Because you can't just let go and not trust. That's not possible.
Yeah.
It's virtually not possible in the way that it's set up. So automatically, you're surrendering to a greater intelligence. Or automatically, you're saying that, hey, my way isn't working. My whole controlling way of this has to be this way. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to fail and my life is going to be over. Automatically, you're saying, you know what? My way isn't working. I'm surrendering to a greater voice. Could be my intuition, could be God, could be the universe, whatever you call it, but it's a greater intelligence. And I've seen that whenever I do that, better things always happen. without fail. Whether it's in my marriage, where I was at a cross point once with my wife, and we were fighting so much that I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out anymore. And I was like, but I want this to work out. I'm so scared this is not going to work out. It's like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? So I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to let go of this whole belief. I'm going to let go of this fear. And I did. And I stopped trying to do anything. And a day later, without me trying to interfere or intervene, all of a sudden the solution came. And we found a way. But see, in hindsight, you could say, "Oh, it happened because you gave each other space." Yeah, but I would have never done that. I would have never given each other space. My way is like, fix it now, control it, talk about it. It needs to happen now.
And even giving space isn't letting go. Giving space just means I'll be back with my shit. I'm just going to take it over here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those areas where the advice is so simple and the follow through is, for people, the perception is that it's so hard. Again, men, keeping the men discussion out of it, just in general for us.
Yeah.
Because it's our default programming is just go, go, go. I can handle it. There's too much at stake. I have to keep fighting. If I let it go, it looks like I'm walking away or quitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mario, how was if you have the book handy, or if you might know off the top of your head, how did he set up the book so that you could understand what he was getting to? Because you yourself had doubts based on the title.
Yeah.
So what was that path like? How did he lay it out for you to understand where he was coming from?
Yeah, he talks about the cost of not letting go. Right? And it speaks exactly into what you're saying. It's all about, look, you've been living your life from a place of, I have to figure this out. I can do this. It's my way or the highway. You've been living your life in this way. You've been doing it in your relationships. You've been doing it in your career. You've been doing it in your health. How's that working out for you?
Yeah.
And then you come to this place where you're like, fuck. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well. And it's this ego-based way of living life. It's this way of like, I am the master of the universe and I know the answer to everything. And it's like, yeah, but clearly you don't. Because if you did, you would already have what you want.
Yeah.
But you keep running into the same walls. And so it's building it up from a sense of like, this is what it's costing you. And this is how holding on to certain emotions is actually manifesting itself in your life. Like I said to you, anger, back pain.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, we hold on to grudges. Like, yes, this guy, he stole $20,000 from me. My father, he was never there for me when I grew up. My old boss, he just, he didn't promote me. My client, he didn't pay that invoice. You sons of bitches. And then we have this I am right attitude. I am right to be angry. Of course. And then what do? We go around and we talk to other people about it. And then, say, hey, John, my old client's such an asshole. And you go, yeah, Mario, what an asshole. What a dick. You're so right. And I go, yeah, thanks, man. Finally, someone says it. And so all you're getting is a confirmation for a belief system that's already not working for you. And in the letting go, when you release it, even like you can test this. Even just so you got to find a target right inside of you. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm holding on to a grudge. I'm holding on to a fear. I'm holding on to shame. You can just say, you close your eyes and you go within and you find the feeling, like you connect to it. Maybe you bring up a memory that brings up the feeling. And then you say, I choose to let go of you. I choose to let go of you. If you do this, instantly you will start to feel a relief. You'll start to feel lighter. Now, just think about that. If you approach a situation and you feel more calm, you feel lighter, what happens to your thinking capacity? It starts to widen.
Yeah.
you become more creative. You become more solution oriented. You see more possibilities. Even if someone comes at you and says, how dare you? You're more grounded. You don't have a need. You have less of a need to attack back. So even when it comes to like leadership situations, you can be the one that is ultimately has more control without trying to have more control because your emotional state shifts.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the main thing that I come to or take away from in just what you're saying is the amount of energy that it takes to hold grudges, that it takes to be angry. We may see it as reactive, like, oh, well, I'm not going to use energy until I see it manifested physically. So if I'm not manifesting it physically, if I'm not acting it out, I'm not using energy. No, to suppress all that, to hold down that anger, that grudge, whatever it may be, takes a lot of energy. So in just like you said, letting go of that weight, letting go of that burden frees you up. You can think more clearly. You see more options. It's not in your energy. It's not in your body language when you're around other people. If somebody comes that would usually trigger you in such a way, you don't lash out because you don't have that fear, that anger, that emotion that's just left unchecked inside you. So I'm following along because I can visualize what that's done in the moments of my life where I was proactive about it. Just be like, this is all for bullshit. Like, if I'm programmed in such a way that hasn't worked, you just said it a couple minutes ago. If it hasn't worked for you up until now, like, why do you keep doing it? So it is about reprogramming how you've looked at life, how you've worked through life, and reprogramming it into a new way. The trickiest part, I think, for me and my personal experiences is just, okay, I can let go of the way that I've always lived, depending on what it is, whether it's trauma, fear, anger, whatever it is. The tricky part, which would seem counterintuitive, is how do you move forward? Because you've lived your entire life with such programming. It should be easy to just let that go and float away to a better, prosperous, more positive. But it's really tricky when you've lived your life in such a way and you have to reprogram and let go to move forward. I think that's the biggest frustration is if it's everything I've ever known, what am I stepping into? How do I live? Because all my life I've, speaking hypothetically, all my life I've lived with friction. So if I step out of that friction, what does that look like? Who am I? Because some people are drawn to chaos, to conflict, to that friction itself.
100%. That's a really good point that you're making. And I would say this is the whole point of consciously designing your life. Like, you can either live your life in reaction to who you were told you are by your past, by your parents, by your environment, by your upbringing, or you can wake up one day and actually consciously design yourself. Every look at the Matrix. You would think that the Matrix, the way that it's told, is like, finally we're free and, we're no longer plugged into the machines. Yay, we're free. And then, but what do they show you? You wake up and you're in this really, really hardcore reality where you're living underground and you have, you have to like work so freaking hard to actually make it. But freedom isn't this like lottery ticket where you move to the Bahamas and you just sip martinis all day. Like, to live a free life means to invest conscious effort into creating it. And that requires work, and that requires you to make hard choices every day. When I did that early on, I was criticized. I was ridiculed by so many people, by old friends, by family members. Oh, why are you doing that? Why are you quitting your career? Why would you let go of that career? Why would you let go of your girlfriend? She's so amazing. Why would you do all of that? That's so stupid. Why would you move away country? Why would you do all of that? I let go so many times in my life, and I can tell you it was hard, but man, am I happy that I have done that, because the degree of freedom, both externally and internally, that I have today, I couldn't even have fathomed that it was possible, back when I was stuck in that career at Lufthansa. And so I would do it all over again. And that to me is a life worth living for and worth dying for. One that you have said, this is who I am, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm creating in my life, because I am a free human being and I'm not bound by what happened to me in my past.
Yeah, it's interesting as a father. I've talked about this on here. As a father, I've dealt with anxiety all my life.
Yeah.
And one of the most anxious eras of my life is right now as a father. And it has nothing to do necessarily with the stress of children or job or anything like that. It's that everything, knock on wood, is good. My kids are healthy. I got the career. Family life is great. And for me, that's what throws me off, is that there is no friction. So now is like the designing point. Now it's kind of like, okay, this stuff that I fought for, worked for, this is all taken care of. Now I have to step into whatever that next chapter is and design what it is. Because everything else, the script, if you will, with respect to my family, is taken care of. Now I have to step into whatever that next design is of life. Right. And it's tricky. It's tricky. But I like this entire concept of just letting go, trusting yourself, but making that next move instead of just kind of dwindling where you don't feel right. I have friends that they have that and they feel completely fulfilled. But to me, there's not something missing, but there's something that I'm feeling called to. So this is a great conversation that provides a great reminder to, and like I said before, if you're somewhere that you have this energy you feel, but it's not being tapped into in the environment where you are, not leaving my family, but there is something else out there that I need to tap into. So I thank you for everything you've shared here, Mario.
Absolutely, John. It's a pleasure. And you, as I said, you asked great questions, and they sparked a whole new conversation for me that I was really excited to have with you. And, I would say that it sounds like to me you feel there's a new chapter, there's a calling, there's something brewing. And every time that I have experienced this with myself or with clients, it could be a little bit like a battle. Like what if that new thing takes away from what I have right now? What if that puts what I have right now in danger? What if it puts my children in danger, my wife? What if it's change? Yeah. And change to the brain is always alert.
Yeah.
And that's just human nature. And, I found that the letting go process can help you a lot with that, because you can consciously say, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's the truth. Nobody does. But I am letting go of my need to have to figure it out, or of my need to have to keep everything perfectly safe.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not going to do it.
Yes.
It's the neediness. The neediness makes you like, oh my God. And that's the part you want to let go of, not the part that makes healthy, wise, informed choices every day.
Absolutely. Mario, so when's your book coming out? You got a book in there, man. When's your book coming out?
That's a good question. I actually just earlier today completed the workbook for Aligned Founders, which is like a 120-page document that will probably at some point lead into a book. But I can't say. Like last year, I thought that I was writing it this year, but I went through such a big transformation this year, and I made a lot of space for that I don't feel that it's here now. It'll come soon, but I don't want to commit to like a date or so.
Oh, of course.
When it's ready, you'll be one of the first people to know.
Absolutely, definitely come back for that. What was the big transformation this year?
It was about alignment. It was about, I let go of my previous business. I let go of clients. I let go of relationships, friendships, mastermind groups. I let go of habits, unhealthy habits, just a lot that I went through that I said, this is no longer a fit to who I am. This cannot move into my next evolution of Mario. And there was a lot there. And I was like, wow, this is shit scary. And this is emotionally like a terrain that I haven't ventured into. So I made space several months to just move through it step by step by step. And as I came out of it, I felt better than ever before and clearer than ever before. And so the book will definitely talk about alignment and what that looks like in practice and what that means, because I've been, it's like my daily bread and butter for me and my clients.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing. The other thing that stands out is that you can't make the assumption in life that it's just going to stay on one path, or it's going to
Yeah.
just be, not for everybody, but, considering different ideas here, that it's not going to be the same thing for the entirety of your path, that there are going to be times where you do have to jump or pivot certain parts of yourself into different chapters. So I think that's a good reminder too, that you had all these things, the friends, the mastermind groups, whatever, the clients, but then you felt somehow that there was a need for a shift into that next chapter.
Yeah.
I think you hit these
absolutely.
inflection points where it's like, okay, I'm ready for that next level, whatever it may be.
Yeah, exactly.
Mario, in closing up, what are you up to these days? Is there anything else you want to share that I might not have asked about? Anything at all? The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. I would say that for me, the next chapter is really to focus on building a movement, a group inside Aligned Founders that focuses on male founders to really help them thrive in their business, thrive in their relationships, and thrive in their health. And we do this through a combination of personal development, of emotional intelligence, and business strategy. And I focus on having a lot of in-person experiences. So I'm going to be back in Cape Town end of this month. I'll be running events there. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running an event in London in 2 weeks. And yeah, if anyone is thinking about coming to Cape Town, then hit me up. And if you're a male founder who wants to come to Cape Town, I would definitely love to know about that. But my focus is on that for the rest of the year, because I want to build a combination of offline and online experiences and people that travel and move around the world that will have a brotherhood, both in person and both on their cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah, we just have so much more access than previous generations, even, 15 years ago. So it's incredible that we can have that work all over the globe, touching base with people from all over the world, across the ocean, doesn't matter what continent they're on. It's just, we're lucky to have that kind of connection. So I appreciate the work you're doing.
True. Thank you, John.
And again, Mario shared the book, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins. Mario, thank you so much for this conversation, everything you shared, from your childhood on up through what you're doing today, my friend.
John, thank you so much. You're a great interview, and I look forward to our next conversation.
If there's anything I might have missed, there's so much to cover, let me know. I can reach out to Mario, see what kind of additional insight, guidance, knowledge, wisdom he may have. Again, I'll definitely have him on for another conversation. I feel like we could have talked for a few more hours just on men's health, their role, and just thriving for them. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.